Hey, how's it going, everyone? How's it going today? Coach Alvarez here, another episode of Coffee with Coach. Hope everyone's up, making some moves, got the mind in the right place. But again, if you don't, you might as you woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. We are going to help put it on the right side, or at least try to. All right. So again, I've been reading this book. I'm gonna share a couple of things with you guys today that I can really relate to a lot, and maybe you can too. Or when you get there, you can remember this stuff. But I'm back in the book. The Code, Evaluations, and Protocols, Jocko. It's a little short, little manual. It's a good little read. And, you know, always looking for some tips, some things for your mindset and stuff like that. But I'm going to put this along with some David Goggins stuff that I was listening to or been listening to pretty much daily for months now. But the title and the description is Go Back to the Gutter, right? So I'm listening to some David Goggins stuff. And he's getting interviewed, and he's talking about having too much. You know, he's talking about your hands getting soft, like your hands are calloused from working out, and you haven't worked out in a while. You know, because things are going really well for you, and then your hands aren't calloused anymore. You're getting soft hands. You know, he said things can get too good for you. So how do you handle that? So that's the David Goggins thing. That's what he's talking about, you know, things being too good and hands being soft. I'm going to put that in here with the Jocko, where it's titled, How to Handle Success While on the Path. Because the last couple of days, I've been talking about the path, how to find the path, how to stay on the path, and then what do you do if you fall off the path? And this is how to handle success while you're on the path, okay? So you're on the path. You are seeing the results of your hard work, and your efforts are paying off. Unmitigated daily discipline in all things is not just a saying, it's your life. Your health is excellent. Work and personal performance is exceeding expectations. You are leading in all aspects of your life. So what now? Thank those who helped you along the way. Take stock in what you achieved. Then go harder. Lead your family, your community, your country. Lead everyone and everything in your world. Lead others to the path. Show them the way. So, again, I can relate to this a lot. And if you have any kind of success, then you'll be able to relate to this. And depending on where you're at in that success and where you got to, and where you're at now, you can be able to relate to this. So, you know, my story started in Saginaw, Michigan, is where I'm originally from, if you haven't heard that already. And just like anyone else, I've had different person. I've changed throughout the years. My situation is different. Who I was before as an individual has definitely changed over the years because of the people that I put myself around, my mindset, what I read, what I listen to, music, everything. But you still can't forget where you came from is how I'm interpreting this stuff here. Like, you can start off in a really bad place, not having much, work your way through all the ups and downs, get to a certain level of success, and you made it, right? Like, I feel like at this point in my life where I'm at, at 45, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. You know, I'm pretty happy with a lot of things right now. I don't really have a lot of complaints. You know, even though the COVID-19 thing happened, everything, business is still in pretty good shape, you know, pretty healthy. You know, I'm healthy, my family's healthy, you know, just got a new home, cars, like all kind of stuff. It's going really well. But how do I keep that? I keep that by, like he says, go harder. Like, once you made it somewhere, you can't rest. You can't relax. You can't settle. You got to go even harder. So, like, that's where these videos are coming from. That's why I'm doing that's why I still train the way I train when I'm on the mats. That's why I still I have to, every day I wake up, I'm thinking about, like, I don't want none of this to leave. I want to keep everything that I worked hard for. But it's really hard because when you make it to a certain point, you get relaxed. It's just a natural thing. Like, man, you just want to kick back and kind of enjoy, look around the things that you've achieved, because you work so hard for them. And you should. You should definitely enjoy a little bit of that success, but not to a point where, you know, you forget not only where you came from and how you got it and who helped you get there, but like trying to keep it. You know, I remember I was in a business meeting not that long ago, and they were going around the room asking people like, why are you here? You know, basically like what brought you here and all this other stuff. And you had to tell them your name and your school and all this other stuff. And most of the people in the room got up, said their name, and they're like, well, I'm trying to get here with my academy, with my business and my life and this and that. And then when it came around to me, it's like, well, I already have my dream academy, except for the fact that I don't own it. Okay, I'm paying rent to someone. The next step for me would be like buy a piece of land and then like build what I have, like pretty much exactly to a T what I have. Like my academy and what I've done to it and what I have is like my dream academy. Like my dream like came true. Like I have it. I just don't really own it, like a piece of land and property and that kind of thing. I'm paying rent to it. But I built the academy in my mind a long time ago, even better than what I thought. My answer to the group was, well, I'm here, I'm flying here, and I'm in this meeting and I'm paying the fees that I'm paying you guys to, for the knowledge I'm trying to get, because I want to keep it. I want to keep it. I want more knowledge. I want to know how I can make this thing better, not only for myself, but for my students, my team, and what else can I add to make it better. But really, the core thing is I want to keep it. Like I worked so hard to get here. I can't just rest on what I've known, what I learned to get to this point and then stop. I went to this business meeting to gain more knowledge, and I'm still part of this group in the meeting, and I'm always in some other groups, and I'm always just trying to just get more. And that's one thing that I've learned is like, you can have all the success you want, but you can't settle. And like I said, David Goggins, he's talking about the saw of hands, which I use that analogy a lot. Like when you shake someone's hand and they're rough and they're calloused, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this individual works with their hands. They work out, they do things with their hands. And you can shake some people's hands and they're like really soft. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, they must work in a cubicle somewhere and they don't really work with their hands. Their hands are really soft. So that's the analogy he uses, and I use that a lot as well. So, I'll give another example. Like when I go home to Saginaw, Michigan, there's some things that happened in my life a while back that kind of turned the corner for me, where I kind of changed certain things, or things like at this moment in my life, this is why I am the way I am today, and this is a big part of it, So I'll go through, when I go home, there's there's a couple routes to get to where you need to get to in Saginaw, but I go through Buena Vista, and I cut through, and I go through like where I grew up, like as a kid, that house is no longer there. That house is burned down. And then I'll just ride through the rest of the neighborhoods where other things have happened in my life, to just kind of reflect a little bit. Like I just don't get on the highway and then cut around to the other side of town. Before I left Saginaw, I was on the west side. So it was like middle upper class, where I bought my house and my car and everything like that. Had a little over a half-acre yard. Life was good. Like I said, I was working for General Motors. Everything was good. But there is definitely the route that you can take, the highway, and skip all the, I guess what you would say, the bad side of town, okay, the rough side of town. Skip all that, go all the way around to the good side, and then just go see the good side. But every time I go home, I get off in BV, okay, because that's where I grew up at. I drive by, the old house. There is no old house. It's just an empty lot with some tall grass and weeds and everything like that. But I want to constantly remind myself, like, man, this is where I started, like a long time ago. And then I'll cut through these other neighborhoods where some other incidents happened, where, some life-changing stuff happened. And I'll just reflect a little bit to remind myself, like, yeah, man, I'm doing really good. But I like going home to go home and see that as a reminder, like, yeah, don't forget, like, this is where you were at one point, because you get, it's just kind of a natural thing when you get a certain level of success, to the ego gets the best of you sometimes. Maybe you're not as humble as you try to be. People make mistakes, and I know I'm guilty of that in certain points. But obviously, having jiu-jitsu in my life and everything else, I definitely try to stay as humble as possible and go back and reflect, like in the title of the description, go back to the gutter, because that's what David Goggins was talking about. He's like, man, you got to go back to the gutter, man. He goes, once you become civilized, it's really hard to become uncivilized. And that's so true. I can relate to that, man. You just make it to a certain point, you're doing really, really well, and then you just forget all the rough days and everything else, that how you got to that point. And sometimes you have to go back to be reminded, hey, this can happen again if you get too full of yourself, if your ego gets too big, if you're not humble, if this, like you just think you're the stuff, and you know, it could all be taken away from you in a matter of a second. So you got to try to do your best to stay humble and go back to where you went to. You know, I can use General Motors as an example. You know, there's days where, you know, I'm not having good days, some rough days. Maybe don't want to go teach classes. Maybe don't want to go train or do whatever. And I think about going back to working on the assembly line at General Motors. I hated that job. I hated it. I've shared this before. We had these ID badges, and they had the turnstiles, and I would swipe my card through there, and you would walk to the turnstile, and it clicks. And when it clicked, every day, man, I hated that sound of the click. You know what I mean? Like I wanted to put some WD-40 on the gate or something, man. So when I walked through it, I didn't hear that click, because that click just made it sound like I was locked in, which I was. I was locked into that place for the next 8, 9, 10 hours to whenever we could leave. And I had to deal with crappy supervisors and other things that I just hated that job, man. So I got to go back to that place in my mind. Like, hey, look, if you don't take care of this, what you built, you could end up losing it all and go back to that assembly line, you know, which, you know, that's just a dreadful thought. So that's where I'm getting at with all this stuff. And so, you know, how do you handle success while on the path? You know, you work harder. You work harder. And what I really like about this is you know, you thank those who helped you along the way and take stock in what you achieved. It says go harder, but then you lead your family, your community, and your country, and lead everyone and everything in your world down that same path. So that's where these videos are coming from. I'm sharing things that have helped me get to a certain point. Maybe they'll help you, whoever's ready for it. Again, whenever the student is ready, the teacher will appear, kind of thing. Just trying to do good things, you know, and help people along the way. You know, it's I think that goes a long, long way, man, where like you can get to a certain point and be stingy, right? Be Scrooge, like just keep everything to yourself and don't want to share it. Well, that does no good. The more you put out positive things, you put out good things, you put out, the more people you help out, the better things, you know, come back to you. And that's not why I do things, right? It's not why you're supposed to do things. You don't help people because, hey, if I go help this person, I'm gonna get help like 10 times more somewhere down the road. It's just it's just in your heart, right? It's like it's in your mind. It's who you are as a person. It's your character. You want to help other people. You want to do things. So you take what you've learned, the mistakes that you've made, and then you try to share those with other people so that they don't make those same mistakes. Or if they do, you can say, well, hey, yeah, I've been there, done that, and this is how I worked my way out of that position. And they can trust you and follow your path, your lead, because you've been there, done that. You know, because it's really hard, like I said, to follow anyone that hasn't been there, done that in anything, because you just, well, hey, man, you haven't even done it. So how am I supposed to know that this is going to work, right? So anyways, how to find the path, get on the path, what happens if you fall off the path, and then what happens when you finally get to that success on the path. You go even harder, do better things, help more people, be a good person, have a good heart, and go back to that dark place sometimes to remind you of where you were at. And like if I don't stay humble and don't control my ego, I could come back to this place, which obviously you don't want to go back to, because that's why you left it in the first place. All right. So anyways, have a great Saturday, guys. Have a great afternoon. We'll catch you next time.